Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good morning, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Jason with Phase Shift Games, and
This is Darrin, also of Phase Shift Games.
hello, Darrin. Darrin, your image is still. It's like we have the ultimate of latency going on right now. Your picture is just frozen in time.
Well, hopefully I'm smiling.
You are smiling. It's a dashing smile. You look wonderful. Yes. So good evening, everyone. If for those of you who have been following along on what Darrin's been dealing with for the last year of his life, I don't know, half a year of his life, long
Yeah,
time.
about since February, yeah.
Your camera burned up, right? Pretty
Yeah,
much.
well, my whole system is under wraps, so I have like a temporary system in an apartment right now. So I'm actually in the living room with actually a washing machine going off right next to me. So hopefully that won't be picked up too much on the microphone.
We're glad that you could be with us. Obviously, Scott and I have been doing a lot of live streaming lately, and you've definitely had your hands full with your family and your household situation. But it's great to have you back on, at least in frozen image format. We can hear your ethereal voice. But because of what we're doing tonight, this is perfect. Actually, it's not. I'm not saying it's perfect when your face can't be moving. But we're gonna screen share and actually walk through the website of where our community submissions come in, and so we don't need to see the video of you and me talking.
Right.
So let me just quickly explain to everyone what we're showing. So we've been getting community submissions in, and the reason is because we just yesterday announced and launched this what we call Shipping Shenanigans. Actually, I'm going to share my screen, and that way you can see the imagery of what I'm talking about here. So let me hit screen share. You should be able to see our Kickstarter banner. And if I scroll down, you'll notice that I'm in update 32. And so we launched this update yesterday. And in update 32, we basically talked about what's going on in the universe right now. Now, unless you've been under a rock, you've heard the phrase global shipping crisis. So this is something that is affecting every industry across the planet. And we're not going to go into the details here on this call, but basically the crates, the giant containers that get loaded onto the ocean liners that go, not ocean liners, what do they call them? Ocean barges? I don't know. The big boats that take the containers from China and other places to United States and Europe and all these places. Those containers are in such high demand that the shipping costs are through the roof. And bottom line is, we, like every other industry, and in our industry, like every other publisher, we have had to be creative. And here's how we were creative in combating this dilemma that we're in, this situation, this global shipping crisis. Bottom line is, we need to fundraise to help pay for the exorbitant costs, and just to put some fine numbers on it, what should have been a $10,000 freight for us and our products, it should have been about $10,000, 10 to 12, is actually over $60,000. That literally means we are currently having to pay out of pocket an extra $45,000 to $50,000 to freight stuff. Well, that's not $45,000 or $50,000 that Darrin and Jason have lying around ready to go.
Nope.
So, bottom line is, we do what we do best, or what we think we do very well, which is we think outside the box. We push the dimensions. We shift dimensions, push the envelope. And in this case, what we came up with was a fundraising campaign that basically started yesterday, and it's going to run for a week or two. And that is, we're calling it Shipping Shenanigans, because that's what's happening. Shenanigans. And we are creating an expansion pack for our games. And that expansion pack will contain content for both Dungeon Drop and the future game that's coming out to Kickstarter later this year called Drop Drive. And so you can read about this in our update 32. If you're on Kickstarter, you can easily go there and find it. But one of the things that we love to do during our Kickstarters is work with the community to create content for our game. So for example, this merchant captain here, this is just a placeholder image. It's prototype, the artwork isn't final, we haven't laid things out correctly yet, there's a bunch of question marks. The point is, what we're saying is we will create a merchant captain card for Dungeon Drop, and we're going to work with the community to figure out what it should do. What should this merchant captain's ability be? How should it behave in the dungeon, in Dungeon Drop?
And also, I wanted to say, before we get, I wanted to talk a little bit about what even got us to this point. Like you mentioned it a little bit, but I wanted to emphasize the fact that we know that a lot of other companies are kind of, and I understand just like kind of asking for some financial assistance in doing what they need to do, but we really didn't want to do that. We really put actually quite a bit of time in talking about how can we do this? How can we give something back to the people who want to help us? And in terms of even the ideas for these cards, you know, we ourselves have a bunch of ideas for these cards as well. So, but we just know it's the engagement with our fans, the people that buy our games, is so high for us that it's like, yes, even though we have some ideas, we really wanted to make people, we wanted to feel like we were doing this whole thing together. We were solving the problem together, we're working together, us and our customers. We like to really feel like we're all trying to create these great games together, because obviously if you're not playing the games, nobody's having fun with them. So we really wanted to emphasize that aspect of it. So go ahead, Jason.
No, I meant to, I think, do a little bit more preamble, but I also recognize sometimes that I do too much preamble, so maybe I skipped ahead a little bit, so thank you.
Oh, it's not, I just thought it was something I could contribute.
Yeah, so essentially, rather than just saying, hey, 4,000 backers, we need you to pay us $10 more a person, because that's the impact, by the way. It's about $10 a person, which is $40,000, and that's the majority of the gap that I described earlier. So rather than just forcing our backers to pay us another $10, which is what other publishers are doing, they're saying, if you want your game, you got to pay us more money, plain and simple. We wanted to just turn this into a positive, and by the way, not saying that other publishers are doing anything wrong, just
right.
Everyone's doing what they feel they have to, that's in the best interest of their backers and their community. Well, for us, we love making things with you. We love designing something new with you that we don't even know what it's going to be yet. And that's what tonight's about. So we have put out these images here, these mock-ups of, you know, we know that we want a merchant captain. We know that we want, there's 4 different things, a monstrous mimic. And we know we want a galactic shipping hub in Drop Drive, and we want the wreck of the Everstar in Drop Drive. These are 4 like concepts that we chose. This is Scott, Darrin, and I talking about all this and arranging this over the last couple weeks. These are all things, you might have noticed the theme. They all have to do with shipping disasters. Exactly. Or, you know, the monstrous mimic is the most terrifying form of a storage container, right? So they all have this theme of shipping and storage and cargo and disaster. And so that's what we did, was we just set the stage. And we said, these are things we want to put into a special expansion pack. And then we'll basically put out a pre-order for this expansion pack now. And that pre-order is serving as our fundraiser to raise the money to fill this gap. Now, we love this idea. And in a previous live stream, I explained, like, you know, you might ask questions like, well, aren't you going to make the problem worse by building something else that you have to ship? You know, later on, you're talking about Drop Drive. How do we know Drop Drive won't have the same problem of this shipping disaster? I explain in full details how we've designed all of this to get around those problems. This is explicitly designed to solve this problem and not add to the problem. And I explain all the math and everything that goes into it. So if you can hopefully have faith on that at the moment. The purpose of tonight is to dig into the Dungeon Drop pieces of this, which are the Merchant Captain and the Monstrous Mimic. Because as of as of this morning, we put out the links where people could contribute their ideas for the captain and the monstrous mimic. So we're going to go through those community submissions now. Now, this is only like 10 hours into community submissions, so there's not a ton yet, but that's actually good. We kind of wanted, like, you know, there's a smattering that are out there. We've skimmed them barely. So we're going to really be looking
I haven't
at
even
them.
seen anything myself, so it's going to be a total hot take for me. I'm really looking forward to it.
Perfect. And we're gonna read through them. We're gonna explain what we think they mean and kind of talk about how that might play out in the game. We're gonna have some fun checking out what the community submissions are. And by no means is it done. This is just day one, essentially, of these submissions. So definitely, if anyone watching has ideas, you've got time to still submit those. The links, by the way, if I go back up, just so you know where to find stuff, if you go to update 33, which is the update I sent out this morning on Kickstarter, this update, if you scroll down, has the same two pictures of the captain and the monstrous mimic. Those are now linked, and if you click the big image, it's going to take you over to Board Game Geek, and Board Game Geek is just the forum site where we engage with our community and these kinds of things, and we get the submissions. All right, does that sufficiently set the stage? Everyone get what we're talking about?
I'm ready to go.
Awesome. So I see we got a couple people watching already. We got Ghost. We got Nico Silver Lightning. Now, Nico Silver Lightning, I recognize the name Silver Lightning. I don't know what Nico is, but are you the... I think that's our contest winner for Trials and Tools. He's the guy who submitted and won that design contest for the expansion pack that we put into the last Kickstarter. So if that's you, Silver Lightning, it's great to have you with us. If it's not you, then who are you, you imposter? All right, so let's take a look at what people submitted for the Merchant Captain. So this is a class card for Dungeon Drop, and to be added into the pile of other class cards that we have, and then you take a race and a class, you put them together, and that is your character for Dungeon Drop. So we asked people to think in terms of what would be an ability that a merchant captain might have in this game. And if we scroll down, let's see what people came up with. We'll go one by one. And let's see, I might try to zoom in just a little bit more, make the text a little bigger. That might be too... I don't know, maybe that's good.
No, it's good on my end, yeah.
All right, so I was going to try to start announcing the names of the people who submit. Zrith Wraith. We'll see. All right, could be that since he's a trader, that he's allowed to make cubes change places. Trade one color crystal or gold into other treasures, which works nicely with the quests. So this is neat. So what he's saying is you got the dungeon and you drop all these cubes on the table, but now this class would let you maybe swap any two cubes, let's say. And maybe you really want the pink gems because your quest is to acquire as many pink gems as possible. So you swap a pink gem into a room, and then you had to take something out of that room and put it where the pink gem came from. Definitely a cool idea. Makes sense. Yep, definitely affecting placement of containers and cargo and things like that.
Or maybe you can swap something with something you already have. That might be too powerful, but that might be something to.
Oh,
think about as well.
so something in your stash, you mean? That like you swap from out of your stash to something that's still in the dungeon, you take that thing from the dungeon and put it in your stash.
Yeah,
Yep.
I can see that maybe being too powerful, but I think we can think that through, especially with Scott.
Yeah, well, the good news is anything that even seems like it might be too powerful, because this actually comes up further down. I know some people said, this might be too powerful, but... Well, there's ways that we have to mitigate that now because we have the concept of damage that we didn't have before. There's damage tokens in the expansion. So if something's too powerful, it may be that, you can do this thing, but you got to take a point of damage when you do it. And that suddenly maybe puts it in line with the other things.
Yep.
So, yeah, there's ways to handle that kind of thing. I definitely think something like that could work. Ghost says, this is now on the live stream chat. Ghost says, couldn't think of anything for Merchant Captain yet, but interested to hear your thoughts on my mimic idea. Awesome. Well, we'll get there shortly.
Yep.
Okay, let's go down to Luke Green. My thought was, since I was drawn to the net, after you collect a room, form 3 rooms, each sharing a side with your original room. Because keep in mind, the rooms are triangular in Dungeon Drop. So, and move all cubes from those 3 rooms into your room. This may end up with one extremely bloated room, which is true. So you may want to add, then collect X cubes from the room, or something like that. All right, so that's interesting. So you got your room that you're looting, just as your normal character turn. You're looting your room, and then all the adjacent rooms on each 3 sides, you take cubes from there and put them into the space that you just looted.
Now,
that's interesting.
Yeah, if he said it's like a net, like one way is like, yeah, put them in there, but another way might be you grab those the items from those 3 rooms and drop them into the middle room, and some of them will fall back out again, like falling through the holes of a net. So that might be a way of having it not be too loaded, but that's just like a riff on that idea.
Yep, I could also see a case. So somebody already, Silver Lightning chimed in and said the next player would have an easy room. So I was going there already, too, that you could still have something like this where you're moving a bunch of stuff in the dungeon, because that's really what this is about, is you're moving a bunch of things from one place to another, which is thematically appropriate, but maybe you're also moving monsters. And if you really want to go with the net idea, creatures get caught in nets all the time. It's a horrible thing in the actual ocean, in our world on Earth. So you could definitely pull in that type of reality here as well, that maybe monsters get caught in the net. So now it's you're setting up a room, yes, for a potential next player, but you could still mitigate so that it's not just like a cakewalk for the next player.
Right.
Yeah, there's something there. I like it.
Cool.
All right, not sure if this is too simple, but navigate. Choose any 2 pillars in the dungeon. Instead of collecting all cubes from a room, you may travel from one of the chosen pillars to the other, so kind of like in a straight line. And you collect 1 cube from every other room that you travel through. From every room that you travel through.
Okay.
Here's my issue with this, Kieran Jones. It's a mechanical issue. It's not a thematic issue. Mechanically speaking, there's essentially almost an infinite number of rooms. So even if you just imagine a straight line in Dungeon Drop, and you move 1 inch, you could have just moved through 14 different room combinations, because every triangle forms a different shaped room. I think it would be very difficult to figure out, like, what's a room? Did I just travel through a new room or not? Because they overlap. It's not like they're mutually exclusive from one another. That
I do like
said,
the theory, though, the idea of picking 2 points and having that be something that's traversed and something that happens along that line. I think there is something to that idea, though.
Absolutely, and that's where I was going too. This idea of you pick 2 points, almost like you imagine a submarine has those charts, right? And they're using a compass, and they're drawing lines from one place to another on this giant underwater chart. It's almost like that you're like plotting a course. And maybe you could do it to 3 pillars, from one to the next, and then from that one to a third one. So you're still manipulating with 3 pillars like you normally would, but the difference here is they don't have to be 3 pillars that would form a legal room. They could be spanning the entire board, and then you collect everything on the line in between or something.
Yep, some good possibilities there. I like the idea of just traveling and course corrections.
Yeah. Okay, neat, got it. Next up, we have Jason Ulrich. What if it was more of a PvP card? So PvP, folks, is player versus player, meaning this is going to be a little more cutthroat of an ability. So navigate. Once per round, choose another player. There you go. You get to pick one of their pillars to use, such as a captain picking the starting or ending point of a trip. Oh, this almost sounds similar now.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's one thing. You get to pick one of their pillars to use, such as a captain picking. So I'm not sure I fully understand that.
Because where are you in the dungeon? I mean, that makes sense when you're doing like the other version of the co-op version of the game, where you have but like you don't really have a character in there until you place a character in there, and that's after that point. Yeah, I'm trying to understand it.
And then even after your turn, like your meeple would come out if you're using the meeples, and pillars can get flicked around. So it's not like it was your room. All right, maybe we're missing the point of that one. So if Jason's listening, maybe we can get a little more definition on that one. But I think it also plays off of the previous one, this idea of like identifying a navigation path. So there might just be something there that correlates.
And he has another idea too.
All right, so yeah, or transport. Once per game, choose. That's interesting. Once per game. I don't know if we have any abilities yet that are only once per game. Although in the expansion, we have the time mage, and I think the way we made it, you can only do it maybe twice per game, but it's very difficult. All right, so once per game, which is totally fine to have that kind of ability, by the way. It's just we don't have that yet. Choose left or right, meaning choose a direction. Then you can move a cube from the player in that direction to the player. And I think what he's getting at, I read this earlier, I think what he means is basically choose clockwise or counterclockwise. And every player, including yourself, just moves one of your cubes to the player to your left. You give up a cube, but you're going to get a cube from the other player to your right.
Okay. And I guess it's the person's choice which one they lose?
I think in this case it is. You could certainly argue that, do the opposite, that you choose a cube from the player on your left or right and take it from them. And everyone gets to do that. So he says this shows a captain making a transport or shipping route. I totally agree with the thematic here, and mechanically I think it also works well. We just, would have to make sure it's balanced, and you're not going to like completely cripple the player to your left by taking one item that's from a set that they needed for their quest or something. We just have to make sure it would be balanced and not destroy their entire game. One way to do that, by the way, would be that you lock it and say in round 1 or 2. So it's still once per game maybe, but it has to be in round 1 or 2. You can't do it in round 3.
Yeah. Yep.
Something like that.
Sure.
I like that one a lot. Yeah, okay. I could see something like that working well. Silver Lightning. So, again, I think this was our contest winner here. Probably too strong, but for fun. Never green light. Until the next round, other players cannot form a room containing your meeple. So
it goes to that same issue.
Yeah, it goes to the same issue. I think you're making the assumption here that your meeple stays in the dungeon, but it doesn't. If you're playing with the heroic teamwork mode, you place your meeple in the dungeon where you think the other player is going to go, the player who's actively taking their turn, and you try to predict, and if you predict correctly, you get points. But then as soon as their turn's done, you take your meeple back, because now the next player goes, and you get to do it again. So your meeple's not really staying in the dungeon from turn to turn.
Now, but playing off of that, one thing that might be, what if instead of you use that ability, but instead of playing, the thing is it wouldn't be on your turn. Like if you played it and you didn't allow the other person to take whatever's inside the room that you placed your meeple in. The only thing about that is that's using your special ability when it's not your turn. I don't know if we've done that before either, but I'm just trying to riff on possibilities for this.
Oh, well, so Silver Lightning just chimed in, so this must be the same guy.
Okay. So
he said, yes, place your meeple back each turn and block something each player turn. So I think what he means is literally wherever, if you, I get it now. Okay, if you activate this ability, then what it's saying is until the next round, for the rest of this round, or until your next turn, basically.
Yeah.
Wherever your meeple does land, the active player cannot form that room. Cannot form a room with you. Your meeple becomes a permanent blocker. So you're not really trying to predict anymore. You're trying to block.
Right. Then you don't get to predict, but you're using it for that other purpose.
Yeah. That's interesting.
It is interesting, really.
And by the way, I don't know if folks picked up on this, but I think the name is intentionally chosen here. The Nevergreen sounds a lot like a particular giant boat that might have been lodged in a particular canal. Awesome. All right, let's move on. Josh McCartney, ability, Guiding Polarity. You may trace a line between two identical types of treasure and collect one piece of treasure touching the line. There's a lot of these abilities that have to do with navigating a line. So you choose two like pink gems and collect one piece of treasure touching the... So I choose a pink gem here and a pink gem there, and now anything on that line is free game for me to just take. That's what this is basically saying.
Yeah, that's pretty cool too. Yeah,
I like it.
It's simple.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Dr. Worm. Make a room by drawing an obscene picture. By the way, I read this earlier, and that one threw me for a loop for a second. I don't think he means obscene like adult. I think it just means like a crazy looking picture containing no more than 5 cubes. So basically you're choosing 5 cubes that form some weird shape, and then other players cannot form rooms adjacent to or containing any of those 5 cubes until your next turn. You'd have to be able to identify those cubes and kind of retain that, like almost... I'd almost want some kind of counters to be able to put on those 5 cubes. Right. Because otherwise you have to remember which 5 they are, and they get scattered around.
And they'll get moved around when you drop.
Yeah. Other players cannot form rooms until the start of your next turn. But in any case, it is back to the idea of drawing almost a path of some kind, a navigation path, which seems to be a common theme here, and blocking, in this case, other players from that space. You know, I'll just toss this out. One of the ideas Scott and I tossed around back and forth a ways back was, is there a way to use the box, the actual box, cubicle box top, to like put it over a section of the dungeon upside down? And that section of the dungeon's like out of play. You cannot touch it. You can't go there. You can't get anything under the box for some period of time. Maybe that's like an easier way to accomplish something like what he's
exactly, because then you don't have that fixes the memory issue of it.
Yeah,
the fact that things get bounced around.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
All right, moving on. I think we only got 1 or 2 more. I'll refresh in case people watching like submitted something while we're going here. Nacha 27. Navigate. You may form a room using a straight line between any 2 cubes. Take 1 damage for each pillar that would be contained on the line. If you meet or exceed 3 damage in forming the room, you can only form a normal room. All right, so once again, he's going for creating a straight line between 2 cubes. Now he says take a damage for each pillar that would be contained on the line. Okay, I read this earlier, but now I'm missing a piece of this. What I thought he meant, he or she, sorry, I don't know. What I thought this person meant was that you normally you have to form a room with 3 pillars, and there's no pillars inside the room. That's like a core rule of Dungeon Drop. So what I thought they meant was now you form a room, it could have, let's say, 2 pillars inside it, which means you could form a much bigger room. But for each pillar inside, you're going to take a point of damage. And you can only do that maximum 3 damage. You can't go above that. But he's talking about using a straight line between any 2 cubes. Oh, you may form a room using a straight line between any 2 cubes. Take a damage for each pillar that would be contained on the line.
Any 2 cubes, so it's not necessarily a pillar.
Oh, I also missed that point. Yes,
that's
you're
my
right.
guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the point is, and this flavor down here is what I really loved about this. The flavor is like it's like a boat in waters with coral reefs that you got to dodge, or you're going to take damage from the coral reefs. And that thematic that like I got this space that I want, but it's got rocks in the way, and so I'm going to take damage from those rocks in the way. Of course, we're in a dungeon, we're not in an ocean, but thematically that tie-in is there. Silver Lightning's posting the actual news article into chat here on the Evergreen boat, which blocked the Suez Canal. I don't know what that has anything to do with this live stream at all. Wink, wink. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the last one. Zrith. Wait, was that the same person as the first one?
Maybe. And maybe the X is a C, like Chris Wraith, maybe?
Oh, let's go with that. Okay, Chris Wraith. So Chris Wraith, this is their second one. It's a hell of a lot easier to say it that way, so let's go with that. Ignore restrictions. You may construct a room containing a pillar. The pillar counts as a huge monster, dealing 3 damage. Well, that's a much easier way to say what we were kind of just talking about, which is that you could have like pillars inside your room, but it's got to deal damage to you as the downside.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's
right.
also simple.
Let me
you can refresh it, right?
Yeah, let me refresh just in case
See if anything came.
People watching are scrambling to put new stuff out. Nope. Okay, so that's what we got so far for the Merchant Captain. There's no question there's some good ideas in there. There's definitely something good that can come out of that. There's a lot of this plotting
emerging themes.
Yeah, definitely emerging. Well, I did put the word navigate in the mock-up here, so that probably made people think about
I didn't mean theme. I'm sorry. I meant emerging consistent mechanics that will
Yes. Yep. Oh, Silver Lightning saying he was explaining the use of the word obscene of the ability. It's a joke referencing the Suez Canal thing. Surprise! No suggestions to do with treasure chests. You know what, DBX Runner? I agree. I kind of half expect. I mean, look, we got a chest or a crate right here in the picture. I kind of expected to see a little bit more thoughts around something with treasure chests in particular, and by no means are the submissions done. We could take submissions for another week or so. So great. Let's move on to the Monstrous Mimic and see what we got over there. I know there's fewer of these, and that doesn't surprise me because the huge monsters are a much newer mechanic. They're in the expansion for Dungeon Drop, which people haven't even received yet. That's what this Kickstarter campaign was for these huge monsters. So let's see what we got. I might as well just refresh now. Okay, so love this image. We had our artwork created for this about a week ago. We said we know we're gonna have a monstrous mimic in this expansion, so make the artwork now, and we love it.
Yeah.
And it could have some form of consuming something, consuming heroes, consuming monsters, consuming treasure. Who knows?
Right.
And all these stats, of course, to be determined. All right, we got some familiar names here. Luke Green. When activated, so let me just really quick explain for anyone who doesn't know. This is how huge monsters work. Is when they first get dropped in the dungeon, there's a big cube that represents it. And when it's first dropped in the dungeon, it activates, meaning whatever this ability in the middle here is, that ability immediately activates. And then that ability is going to activate every round and every time a player touches what's called a forbidden pillar in the game. So there's a bunch of times. So these monsters live and thrive in the dungeon. They're constantly going to move around, eat stuff, collect a treasure, and then if you kill it, you get all its treasure. So all sorts of cool stuff happens with these huge monsters. Really, really cool mechanic. And then if you kill it, you collect it, you get whatever the scoring bonus is over on the right. Okay, So with that, all of these are going to have to do with activation, I presume. When activated, take all X cubes from outside the dungeon and randomly take X number of cubes to put on this card and redrop the remaining cubes. I think X, he just means however the rules work out, whatever the correct numbers are. We'll figure that out. Redrop the remaining. When defeated, the player can choose up to 3 of those cubes to collect themselves and must give 1 non-monster cube to each other player. All right. So the gist of this is when he activates... X equals
number of players. That's the qualifier.
Oh, there it is right there. Okay. So let's say we're playing a 3-player game. He activates. We take 3 cubes from outside the dungeon. What that means is on the outskirts of the table. So I take 3 cubes from outside the dungeon. I don't know who gets to choose that. That would be something. randomly take 3 cubes, X number of cubes, and put on this card. X is still the number of players, though, so I don't know if it's like of those 3 or 3 different ones.
Now, if you're going to take randomly 3, that's tough because like it's hard to randomly pick cubes off of the dungeon floor. You could take them out of the box, but I don't know if that would create some sort of a loop. Like if there's something, you know what I mean? Like if you pick another huge monster, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not understanding it.
All right, well, the spirit of it is there's treasure that he's gobbling up, and then, you know, some number of those treasure are getting put onto his card so that when a player defeats the monstrous mimic, they can keep up to a certain, you know, up to 3 of those cubes to collect in their own stash. So you kill the mimic and you get all this treasure that he consumed. And then you have to give maybe 1 of the additional cubes that's on it to each other player, so everyone else gets something too. That's cool. I think it has some similarities to a couple things. We have the what is it? The giant gelatinous cube, and that one goes around gobbling up treasure.
Right.
And we have the evil eye, which scares all the players, and everyone has to put a treasure from their stash onto the evil eye. And then when you kill the evil eye, same thing. You get to take a certain number of cubes from the evil eye. So it's got some similarities to both of those, but obviously it's viable because we have those other 2 and they work fine. He doesn't know how many hearts it would have. Yeah, we'll figure those kinds of things. All right, let's move on. Yeah, so Silver Lightning was clarifying what he thinks Luke means here. Take all the outside cubes, keep 3, redrop the rest. Yeah, that may be what was meant. Like, take all the cubes from outside, keep 3 of them, and put the, you know, etc., etc. All right, Silver Lightning here. When activated, attach the nearest treasure cube. Health is equal to the number of attached cubes plus 3. And simple scoring, roll the mimic. What he means is the mimic is going to be a cube. There's going to be a huge cube that represents this monstrous mimic. And actually, I'll go... Did I put the picture here? Hold on. I just want to show people. There was a mock-up, maybe in this one here, of... There it is. This is just a fun little mock-up of the huge cube. Now, if you know Dungeon Drop, the treasure chests are like little dice like this. They're brown instead of gray. And they're smaller. So what we were just doing was taking the coloring of this artwork, making a similar looking cube, but now you got the tongue, and this will be bigger, and it's the cool gray color. So we were just showing one possible look for this cube. It could look like a larger treasure chest that's more unique. It doesn't have to be, but that's one possibility. Now, if that's the case, then what they're saying over here is you're going to roll it, meaning you roll that big cube and see what number's facing up. And you get that score plus collect the treasure cubes that were attached. Okay, so very easy. He moves around and he gobbles up treasure. And his health, it means it's harder to kill him, it keeps going up based on how much he's eaten. This is very similar to how the giant gelatinous cube already works. That was my only hesitation with this.
But the difference here is you actually roll it when there's something to the rolling of it, which I think is going to be important because the whole point is, one of the things that makes it different is that it acts like a chest which you roll.
Yep.
And maybe it could be the kind of thing, I don't know, just off the top of my head too, just if you roll it, if you get like the mouth side up, maybe it does more damage or something.
Yeah, you could have that risk. I love that idea of risk reward because, you know, that's the thing. It's a mimic. It's pretending to be a treasure chest, and then sometimes it comes out and eats you.
Right.
Cool. All right, definitely some good stuff there. Josh McCartney. So it's got approximate health of 6. And now, I read this earlier. This was interesting. Passive ability. So normally, this was something we shied away from. We did not have any passive abilities. And the reason is we didn't want people to have to constantly remember, oh yeah, there's that monster with that passive ability. We forgot to activate it. That's not to say we can't do this, because here we're talking about an expansion for an expansion. So the people that are going to get this are more advanced players. So this kind of ability is a no-brainer for more advanced players. But that's why we avoided it in the past. So this is like untapped space, this idea of a passive ability. And he's saying the ability could be called, that's no chest. That's not a chest. All treasure count as 2 health monsters while this is in play. So basically, all chests become mimics in a way. Score 4, and any obtained chests can be rolled without keys. So I think what he means is, so you get some score for killing the monstrous mimic, but all these other mimics that you also collect, or these other treasure chests that you collected, they did damage to you when you collected them. But now that you have them, it's like you just killed them and you don't need a key. They're just automatically unlocked. But you took the damage earlier. So that's interesting.
I do like the idea of something fun about the idea is like which one is the mimic. Like when he's in there, any given chest may be a mimic when he's active.
Yeah.
Or something like that. That's kind of a neat idea. Maybe it's the kind of thing where, again, if you roll, you don't need a key, but if you roll a 1, you take a lot of damage or something like that. I like the above. There's definitely some neat possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple people in the chat chiming in. This one's great, unique and thematic. It sounds clever. He's a chest. DBX Runner earlier said, Captain Share. Gain a key or chest from the bag. Maybe whichever you draw first. Captain Share. Was that? I think that was maybe a note about the
previous card.
Yeah, the merchant captain. So if you gain a key or chest, or you gain a key or chest from the bag. Whichever you draw first. Interesting. Okay. All right, and let's move down to the last one. Ollie. I had 2 ideas for the ability that are similar. Call home. When triggered, all player roll all chests in their inventory. I like where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
On an even roll, they're normal chests. On an odd roll, it's a mimic and runs away, being redropped. That's neat. And then if it's even, does that become the value of that chest? Like normally at the end of the game is when you roll. So does that make it your roll, or is it just that no? It's when that's triggered that happens, and it might happen a bunch of times. So everyone's chests just keep running away throughout the game.
That's neat. Yeah, that means like if you get a chest, it may leave you.
You have
to roll even to keep it, but if you roll odd, it goes back into the dungeon. So that's interesting.
Or maybe it goes on to him. And then you combine some of these ideas. Maybe all those chests that ran away go on to him, but then when a player kills him, they get
all those chests.
Either all of them or some number of them. Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right, and the second one, Mimic Attack. When triggered, for each player's next turn, any collected chest must be rolled. On a 4, 5, or 6, it's normal. On a 1, 2, 3, it's a Mimic. And counted as a 1 health monster instead. So similar, when you collect a chest, you got to roll to see if it attacks you.
Yeah. The thing I like about this in general is I like the idea that there's sort of like the boss mimic, and then because there's a boss mimic, any of the other chests may be mimics too. There's something really cool about that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, actually the Goblin King almost has a little of that essence where he affects all the other goblins in the dungeon. They all drop around him every turn. So yes, there's definitely room for that kind of thing where it's like he's the king of the chests.
The mimics.
And there's some really fun stuff. Ideas in here, guys. Ghost says don't think of it, or didn't think of it, but the roll could be the final value. Oh, he was commenting on what I was saying, that when you roll it. But cool. All right, well that was it.
We're already off to a great start. We still got time.
Oh yeah, this was just, we've never really done that. I'm gonna switch my camera back really quick so we're bigger screen for people. There we go. So we never really did this where we live went through all the submissions. Normally it was just the 3 of us kind of on our own going through, reading through, and understanding. But I mean, I think this is fun doing this with
definitely
with the community. So by all means, we could do this again if we get a bunch more submissions over the next few days. We could do another one of these. We could pull Scott in if he's available.
Yep.
Awesome. Well,
thank you everybody for your submissions.
Yes. Any parting thoughts or words of wisdom?
Well, like we've always said, one of my, even though I'm not on as many of the videos as you are, one of the things that I've always loved is the participation of the people that are playing our games and also helping us make the games. That's just I think one of the neatest aspects of this whole endeavor that we're doing together. We really feel like we are with our I don't know if you want to call them fans or whatever, but the people who play our game, just kind of like we're all in it together. And that's also I think what helps the idea that even with the shipping crisis, we're all in this together too. We didn't want to just ask for more money. We wanted to actually give something back and let the people participate in what that giving back thing might be. So yeah, I'm just really happy about this. I'm not happy about the shipping problem.
Yeah.
But a lot of times good things can come out of bad as long as you have the right mind for it.
Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we did our best to turn a bad situation into a positive, and we're all doing it. We're all working on it together. So it is what it is. Yeah. I just shared again really quick because I did want to end with, we didn't talk about it today, but there's these two other, this is just a sketch artwork. It's lower quality currently, and then this one's a little higher fidelity. But these two, we'll have ideas that we start to put out for these. These may be a little more, like we're going to come up with some ideas, and maybe we'll see how many we come up with here. But these are the two for Drop Drive. And most people, it would be hard to get community submissions for these at the moment because most people don't even know how the game plays yet. But I just wanted to remind everyone that this is also a part of this, that in this one expansion pack, we've got content for Dungeon Drop and we've got content for Drop Drive. And these are going to include special components as well. Specifically, we imagine these green crates. You got these green crates in the imagery here. So one of the general principle ideas that we have is this Everstar is this space freighter that crashes into this asteroid, and kind of like someone's corollary earlier in with the merchant captain. Here we have the Everstar, and that maybe there's a bunch of these like green crates, and you drop them wherever that happened, wherever the Everstar crashed into the asteroid, and now you got these crates in space, and it gives another thing that your player ships can do, because your player ships are in space in this game. They stay on the board, they move around from turn to turn. It's a totally different game from Dungeon Drop. And maybe now you can go and pick up these crates, put them in your cargo, and then either maybe they get delivered back to the Galactic Shipping Hub and you get some points or credits for doing that, or maybe you can sell them on the black market and get a different type of reward. Like, lots of possibilities that we haven't figured out. Maybe they can
act like dice also. I'm not sure if that's something that could or couldn't work with this, but
anything's possible. So a lot of really fun, cool things that are going to come out of this. All right. So, I guess that's good. That's a good wrap for tonight. Thanks for spending the time with us. Some people saying that it was fun hearing us chat about the ideas. Thank you all for joining us on the ride, and much more to come.
Yep. Cheers, all.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks.